The purpose of this video is to guide you through some of the documentation for VCE curriculum. So in one of the earlier videos, I've gone through how to set up units. So I'm not going to go through that here. This is assuming that you've already got units set up and you're ready to start completing the documentation that sits behind those. So the unit I'm going to use to demonstrate this, or the course I'm going to use to demonstrate this, is Unit 1 and 2 Biology. And so I've already got Chapter 3 in here, programmed in, ready to go. So I'm going to just click on the name and it will take me into the documentation. Now, the unit description, actually, if I go back just one step, because it's Unit 1 Biology, it's going to be the same across the board. So if I click into what I already have put in for Chapter 2, there's my unit description. So I'm just going to copy all of that, because that's the same for all of Unit 1 Biology, which is what this forms part of. So I'm just going to go back into my Chapter 3 now and paste that in. The point being that the unit description for a VCE subject will be consistent right the way through a given unit. So you can just copy it and paste it in, and that will cover your requirement there. There's no point being really specific and saying for plasma membranes, we're going to look at the structure and function of the membrane and how things are transported, full stop. It's all included as part of the overall description. Same thing when you look at the essential learnings and questions. VCE study design provides those questions both for the overall unit and for a given area of study. So you just put those questions in. That's what we're aiming to achieve. And that will be consistent right across for Unit 1 Biology. And then for Area of Study 1, that will be consistent for each of the subunits that I program into Atlas. For the actual outcomes, they're all pre-programmed into Atlas based on your study design. So if I go into the VCE outcomes first, and you'll see it's broken up into outcomes, key knowledge, and skills. If I click on choose standards, I've already got this programmed in to come up so that you can pick your domain area. So to be under science, senior secondary will be set by default, and I've selected biology. So that will just bring up what I'm looking to program in for Unit 1 Biology. It will bring up all of the units, so Unit 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like you can see if I scroll down, there's Unit 4. But I'm doing Unit 1, so I'm up near the top. Now, in my first unit that I completed under the course, I did cells and cell structures and function. So that's why that's saying in this course, I've already targeted that. That means that I've sought to teach it. If I want to see where I'm teaching it, if I click on that, it will tell you that I've targeted under Chapter 2, what are cells, and I'm running that over weeks 2 and 3. I've also assessed that, and where have I done that? I've done that again in the same unit. Okay, so I can quickly see where I've already targeted things. For this one, if I'm actually going to target that again because it covers plasma membranes are covered as part of that. So I'm going to target that again. Now it's come up with a 2. If I click on that, it should tell me. I haven't saved it yet, so it hasn't come up telling me that it's in this unit as well, the Chapter 3 unit. But once I save it, it will come up with a second line and tell me that. So I'm going to leave that there and then save that. Key knowledge. So this will be where it breaks it down a bit more. So again, in my Chapter 2 unit, I've covered these first 3 points and it's telling me I've targeted those. And I'm doing Chapter 3, which is the plasma membrane. So I'm actually going to target both of those. Targeting means I'm going to teach it. So I'll put those in and I'm going to teach those. And then what skills am I looking at? So again, I didn't say it in the middle one, but you select the appropriate study design. So what I'm going to do, in this one, I'm not actually going to get them to do a prac, so I'm not really going to get them to do aims and hypotheses and things like that. I have done that already in the previous chapter, but for this particular chapter, it's not going to be focused on that. So I'm not going to tick that. I'm not going to be doing investigations. And in fact, for this chapter, I'm unlikely to address any of these. It's just going to be more about the theory and then some review questions. So I'm going to leave that blank for now. Down the bottom here, you do have the VCAL outcomes as well. There's a senior secondary template. It forms part of that, so we won't need to look at that for the purposes of this VCE video. The next section is your assessments. So how do I add an assessment? If I was going to do an assessment for this, and let's just say it's a written test. Okay, I'm going to do a written test for review. Give it a title. Is it summative or formative? I'm not up to that part yet, actually. What is it? It's going to be a written test. Okay, and then summative or formative, and I'll say that it's formative, it's not a SAC. I'm going to just assess where they're up to. And then you must type in a description of some sort. So type in a bit of an outline as to what you're doing. Now, if it is a written test and it's saved as a document, you might come in here and you can add the attachment, add a file attachment. It's not any of these, but let's just say it is that, okay? I can then attach that document. And what that does, it leaves the document in a location that's quick and easy for you to find, tagged to your curriculum planning. It also means if someone else was to come in and teach it next year, they've got access to a whole bunch of resources. Or if you were going to teach it again in 5 years' time and you couldn't quite remember where you saved everything, well, it's all saved in Atlas for forever and a day, so you can come back and find it. The outcomes that I've targeted in the unit to teach will be the ones that come up as now being targeted for assessment. So let's say this written test is going to assess all of these. I'm going to tick all 3. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to do that because I want to go out and then back in. I click over here to edit that unit. When I go back in, you'll see here, it tells me that in this unit, and the unit, remember, is just this chapter, chapter 3, I have assessed it once. But in the course, in other words, in unit 1 and 2 biology, the whole subject, I've actually assessed it twice. But where have I assessed it? Well, if I click on that blue band, it says I've assessed it in chapter 2 and I've assessed it in this chapter, chapter 3. It tells me the name of the unit that I've assessed it in. It tells me when it's being targeted, week 2 and 3, or week 4 and 5, and it tells me the name of the investigation that I'm doing it in. So you can quickly and easily audit where you've assessed it, how many times you've assessed it, and you can always go back and look at where that assessment is through Atlas as well. So I'll save that. Then you've got your learning activities. That's the term at a glance. Now there's a video that walks you through what is expected and required in a term at a glance that's separate to this. So I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail other than to say this is week 3, it's chapter 3, and it will cover weeks 4 to 5. So that's what I would be giving students. That's my term at a glance that I give the students. For now, I'm just going to copy that, paste that in here. And there's my breakdown of what I'm aiming to do and the review activities that students will be expected to do. Any specific vocab related to this particular chapter, I would put in here. Any literacy strategies that I'm using to support students in terms of their understanding of the topic, and in particular building vocab in biology, I'd put that here. So not what the vocab is, but what strategies am I actually using for the students and in the classroom. Equally, if I was doing something that required numeracy, so for example, when we do look at cells and their size, we do surface area to volume ratios. So I would put in that I'm doing pracs that ask them to calculate surface area to volume ratios, and that's using a numeracy strategy as part of the teaching. Any differentiation strategies I'm using would be included there. And then on the end, we ask you to add any reflections after you've taught the unit that lets you go back in a year's time and say, yep, that actually worked really well, or no, that didn't work so well, I need to change that up. And it just means that you're not required to just lock that away in your memory. You can keep just a brief record there as to how that unit went. So that in effect is how you document VCE curriculum. If there's any questions about what is required or any inclusions that need to go in there, please let me know or have a chat with the teaching and learning team, and we'll be happy to go through that with you. Thank you very much for watching.